All right, hope you're all primed for the top 50 Patriots under Bill Belichick, Volume 2. I had a blast putting this together, and I knew this time around I needed to get more input from some experts, so I reached out to them. The first debate that I wanted to try and settle was Dante Hightower and Willie McGinest. Who belongs higher? Dante Hightower helped deliver 3 Super Bowls with different plays. I mean, he was a beast in 2018 against the Rams, terrorized them. I don't have to tell you about the strip sack in 2016, do I? Against the Falcons? And back in 2014, if not for him tripping up Marshawn Lynch, you might never heard the name Malcolm Butler. But Dante Hightower has nothing on Willie McGinest. Big Willie, drafted 4th in 1994, a bridge guy all the way through with 3 Super Bowl wins, the leading sacker in postseason play in NFL history. An OG, which guy goes first? This was something I was going to be fascinated to hear the input on. Deion Branch has thoughts. Deion? I look at Hightower and McGinest as similar, but Hightower is actually a little more versatile in some ways than Willie, who was up at the edge. So I actually wanted to ask you about that specific conversation. There's a couple of tough ones for me, but Hightower and McGinest, to me, are right next to each other. I had Hightower because it was early in his career at like 45 on the first list. I had McGinest,
right?
Believe it or not, folks, I had him at 12. Yeah. And there's some good guys ahead of me. It's crazy to put Willie McGinest at 12, but he's at 12. How do I break those guys down? Willie was like the all-time sacks leader in the postseason, but Hightower has 3 different plays and 3 different Super Bowls that helped clinch the Super Bowl wins.
For sure. Yeah, that's a tough one. You know, I leave that up to you. You're more the expert on that. I'm more of the actual player when it comes to that breakdown, because I look at both of those guys. The way I'm looking at it is that they're playing 2 separate positions.
Right.
And I think the way, like how you're saying, we're rating it just as players and their impact on the game. With that being said, we can say that Hightower has, well, at least that I have known of, has had more impactful games throughout his career than Willie when we look at the highest game. We're talking about the Super Bowls in general. But we can't discredit Willie because they didn't make it to the Super Bowl 4 or 5 times the way Hightower has played in it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So
100%. And then you can find, like, I'm sure the people listen, well, Willie had a 16-yard sack against Peyton Manning.
That's what I'm saying.
Willie was the one who pressured Kurt Warner. Everybody on this list has a whole mess of stuff.
Exactly.
Let's listen to Scott Zolak on Willie McGinest and Dante Hightower. Dante Hightower or Willie McGinest? Which guy goes first?
If you're doing that whole transitional period where Willie wasn't here, 07, 08, and that, and what Dante's meant to the team and how Bill's nicknamed Mr. February, Willie didn't have that nickname, Mr. February. It's got to be Hightower.
But Willie had actually set the playoff career record for sacks.
See, I think Willie's a yellow jacket guy. That's the fun part of this. You know, some of these guys will never sniff yellow jacket. Like Vince. Vince is a red jacket guy. Seymour, yellow jacket guy.
Vince should be in consideration for a yellow jacket.
He should.
He was one of the best players in the league from 2009 through 2012.
Can't put Vince in until Seymour's in.
But they're on the same level. Maybe not. They should be.
I agree.
Christian Fauria, he's watched all of it since he got here back in 2002. What does he think about the Willie and Hightower debate? Tell me, how do I figure out who deserves to be higher? Well, Hightower or McGinest?
Well, I think McGinest, just because he's a foundational player. I think there's something to that. I think there's something to, the Lewis and Clark expedition type thing. Hey, we kind of, we blazed the trail first. We set, the rules and regulations. I feel like there's an added little feather in your cap for those guys, because like when I came here, like I was in Seattle for 7 years, and I was always searching for this type of atmosphere, which I thought was so significant and such a big reason of why they were winning. Because none of these players were established back then, So I remember coming in the first year, I was like, wow, they have a ton of leaders. not just a couple. They have a ton. Like any of those guys that I thought were leaders could go at a team and be a captain on another team. And there's guys in every level. And I was like, oh, this is perfect, because I was a captain. I was a captain in college. I was captain in high school. I was captain in Seattle before I was getting hurt all the time. So that type of atmosphere was important. Willie was a big part of that, huge part of that. So, and when it comes to, not that, Dante Hightower wasn't a vocal guy, but I definitely give the nod to Willie. And it's no disrespect. It's like, listen.
No, of course not. I mean, Hightower is phenomenal as McGinest was, as much of a, and I hate the word specimen, it sounds dehumanizing, but as much of a physical specimen as McGinest was, Hightower might be more athletic, faster.
Yeah, you know what? Just sure. I mean, I guess
faster, more. I mean, I hate to say more powerful than Willie McGinest,
but so different. They're so different. Willie's a straight up, hand on the ground, 3-4 outside linebacker like you used to see all the time. It's totally different.
When we're talking leadership, we're talking Devin McCourty. What's he think of these two great leaders from the defense as well? Hightower versus McGinest. I look at what Hightower did in the Super Bowls. I look at how good Hightower is as a beast. If he was ever in another system with another team completely unleashed that said, Dante, do whatever you want, he would have been all pro year after year. I mean, he's a wrecking ball. But I look at those two guys as similar too in some ways.
I agree. And I think because obviously playing with High, I know what he's about. We were just talking about this yesterday. I was talking to him and we were talking about just consistency. Like he was like, I go out there and I just try to be consistent. Like I want everybody around to know what you're going to get from me each play. Like, yeah, sometimes I'll make the big play, but like most of the time I'm going to be where I'm supposed to be. Like that's what you're going to expect. And like I hear him say that, and then I remember like either a year ago or 2 years ago, Willie Mack came in, and he was talking to the guys about setting the edge of the defense, and he was like, "Yeah, nah, all of those force calls like safety, force, corner, like, I ain't care about all that. I had to force no matter what. If I was in the C gap, I took the C gap and the D gap out of it. Like that was what." And I was just thinking, I'm hearing both these guys, and I'm like that they're tone setters of the defense. Like they're guys that are just gonna knock people around. And I think it's harder too, because like you just said, I look at James White and Kev Falk. Kev's career is finished. So you do the total sum and you're like, man, that's a lot. Like he was a returner. he was special. And I do think like that might be the thing that puts him like over James, because he was a returner and he did all of that. And I look at High and Willie Mack, I'm like how do you change that? Like Willie Mack set a record for sacks in a playoff game.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Hightower's helped win 3 Super Bowls. So it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I am not doing the tie at number 9 or some shit though. I'm not doing that.
But I do think when you put guys, one's at 9, one's at 10, like to me, when I see that, like that's the same thing. Like, I don't know, like if you had like Kev Falk was here and then James White, or James White then Kev Falk, or Hyde and Willie Mack or William, I'm like, all right, he struggled with that. He picked this guy because, and there'll probably be one thing where you're like, I edged him out because of this one thing. But I think theoretically, people that see the list will know like, hey, that could have went either way.
I mean,
so I think the hard thing is, I think that group, that defense, be with Willie Mack, Vrabel, Brewski, Seymour, like, but those linebackers were so like instrumental in like that team, and like even talking to those guys and just how they, it was so much more run game and everything, and those guys controlled the front and also was a big part of their zone defense. I think it's hard, but I think you have to pick like, all right, some of it has to be importance to the team. So like, all right, that defense, like which one, like our defense, I feel like the years High wasn't there was a big difference.
Oh my God.
And I think that value to me is what I would put him, I would think him over. Cause I just think our defense just was so different when he wasn't out there.
You look at that 2017 game in the Super Bowl, and there's a million reasons, but we focus on the cornerback who didn't play. Meanwhile, Hightower wasn't out there. They're not scoring 41 points if Dante Hightower plays in 2017, or if Julian Edelman plays. I mean, that team was so stacked. That might have been the best team, and everybody was hurt. All right, I got plenty of intel from our experts. When I get into the lab and start checking out who's going to be first, I think I got a feeling for who's going to be first out of those two. But we have another debate coming up tomorrow. It's going to be Julian Edelman and Troy Brown. You got a couple of perfect Patriots there. Which one belongs higher on this list? The latter edition, Patriots Hall of Famer to be, Edelman, or Troy Brown, Mr. Patriot?